the most important one of all. The NFC East, first division since the 1997 NFC Central to have 3 teams make it to the divisional round. First team to accomplish the feat since the 0-2 realignment. This is their first postseason matchup since 2008. Only the 5th overall. They've split the first 4 playoff games between them. Russ Thaler back here in studio. Joining us to preview the Giants and Eagles, we've got CBS Sports senior writer Pete Prisco and former NFL QB Danny Kanell. All right, Danny, Jalen Hurts got hurt, missed a couple games late in the season. Eagles lost those games, came back in Week 18 to help them secure the division title and the top seed. But this is the postseason. What's your expectation for Jalen Hurts now?
Russ, I think we get the Jalen Hurts that was in the MVP conversation. I mean, he was right there, and this Eagles team was a very trendy pick to win the Super Bowl. And then remember the discussion like, oh, there won't be much drop-off when Jalen Hurts comes out. Then they lose 2 games in a row, and you're like, maybe he does. Maybe he is the straw that stirs the drink. And I think that's what they're going to need from him. But I do think they get it. Full participant in practice this week. I think you'll get him at the full disposal of Sirianni's offense. I think they won't be afraid to rush him. I don't think they'll be afraid to throw the football. I think they're going to go in just like it's a normal game, just like the same Eagles team that dominated a lot of the regular season. And even more important than Jalen Hurts, I think is Lane Johnson who's going to give it a go. The right tackle is probably one of the best tackles in the entire NFL. That, to me, is almost as important getting him back as it is for Jalen Hurts. So I think you'll get the best version of the Eagles, which it feels like everyone has forgotten about as the 49ers have become a trendy favorite. So I think you'll get the best version.
Yeah, he practiced all week, and again, the question becomes what happens when he gets outside the pocket and runs the football. Is there going to be anything that will keep him limited the rest of the game? So I'm always concerned when a quarterback runs. But Danny's right. He's cleared to play. He looks healthy. He did not look good in the final week of the season. He didn't look like the same guy. So there has to be a little bit of concern there for the Eagles and the Eagle fans on what he will look like. But I imagine that the rest has done him well. He'll be back to playing normal football again. And when he is playing his football, his right football, he is one of the best in the league. He puts so much pressure on a defense because they force you to do so many different things to defend the run, and that helps open up the passing game. He's been electrifying. He mentioned it. He was an MVP candidate. I think he's back to playing at that level in this game.
Pete, in so many ways, it feels like job done already for Brian Daboll and the Giants. Daniel Jones might actually be the guy. They're still alive after beating the Vikings last weekend. But what's it going to take for the G-men to get out of Philly with a win tonight?
Well, I think it's going to take a perfect game because this is one of those teams like Jacksonville. They're playing with house money. Nobody thought they would be there, but now they're starting to believe. And when you go on the road and beat the Vikings, and yeah, the Vikings were a little bit of a fraud. The Eagles are a much better team. You start to believe, and it takes an effort up front on defense, but it also takes Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones has to be good in this game. He has to be one of those guys that doesn't make mistakes. I love the play calling. I think Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll do an outstanding job of making it easy on the quarterback. We always talk about that as it relates to San Francisco and Brock Purdy and whoever plays quarterback there. But the same holds true here. What they've done with Daniel Jones is incredible. I think this is going to be one of those games where he has to come up big. You can't make mistakes because the Giants, they're not deep, but they're talented, and if they can coach them up the right way, I think there's a chance that they can have some good offensive numbers in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you, Pete. I like the way you said that starting off, like they have to play the perfect game. I mean, there's a reason the Eagles were sitting at home watching last week, getting healthy. And, you know, as much as we've talked about the season sweep, you do have to remember, like the Giants, one of the ways to avoid is go play all your starters again. They rested everybody and still were pretty competitive against the Eagles. So obviously that's going to play a huge part in it. But I do, like, when I look at the Giants, what I wonder is, because that was an epic performance last week in Minnesota, and you went in, you beat a really good team with a great record, but Minnesota's defense is atrocious. And to the Giants' credit, they did exploit it, and they all got out there. Saquon had a big day. Daniel Jones had a career day. Everyone did. Now the question is, can you build off that momentum and do the same thing against a defense that completely shut you down the first time that you saw them? So they've got to shake that one from their memory, and they have to keep the momentum going and pick up that offense exactly where they left off. But I'll tell you, one of the biggest things, and Pete mentioned it, belief is a big thing, and momentum is a big thing. I think Brian Daboll has this Giants team believing they can beat anybody in the NFL right now, and that makes them a pretty dangerous opponent for the Eagles.
Yeah, Danny, matchups are going to be a big thing here, too. The Giants and Eagles know each other really well. What's a matchup you think might decide this one?
Give me the big boys up front. So I'll go with the Giants offensive line versus the Eagles defensive line. And I think when you look at this, you kind of have to throw out the second matchup. Both teams, the Giants didn't play anybody, as I just mentioned, but go back to the first run around. They sacked the Giants quarterbacks 7 times. They held Saquon Barkley to one of his lowest rushing totals of the year. The Eagles did. So I think the Giants offensive line has to step up. They've got to match the physicality that the Eagles brought in that first one. Miles Sanders went off on the ground game. They've got to give Daniel Jones time to throw. They've got to make sure he's not running for his life, that there's a clean pocket. And I know sometimes you can get a little bit lazy because you have a mobile quarterback, but you do not want Daniel Jones kind of improvising and having to and running for his life all afternoon. So for me, it's the Giants offensive line versus the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line.
Yeah, and Danny, I'm going to go a little bit further and narrow it in the scope a little bit. You mentioned it, that defensive line, 70 sacks this year, second highest total in league history. That's incredible. 4 guys with double-digit sacks, which is a league record, by the way. And the guy to focus in on is Hassan Reddick. He has 16 sacks. He's been a dominant edge rusher. Where's he line up? Left on the outside. He's going to rush from the left side of the defense. That means he's matched up against Evan Neal, the rookie right tackle from Alabama. Evan Neal is going to be a really good player, but there have been times in the last month where he struggled with some speed rushers, and that's exactly what Reddick does. I think the Giants might need to help him a little bit. I think Andrew Thomas will hold up on the left side, but this focus has to be on the right side with rookie Evan Neal at right tackle.
All right, let's get to the bets with this game. We're starting with some player props. Pete, what's your best player prop for Giants-Eagles?
Look, I think you're going to have to use your legs in this game if you're Daniel Jones. He has to get outside the pocket. I think the rush will force him outside the pocket to get some scrambles. There will also be some design runs to take away some of the aggressiveness of the Philadelphia defense. And so for that reason, I'm going to go Daniel Jones over 41.5 rushing yards. I think he's going to get more like 65, 70 in this game. Some because of necessity, some because of design runs, because Brian Daboll is so good at designing runs for his quarterback.
I love it. I totally agree with that one. I went on the other side and looked at Jalen Hurts, who I also think is going to have a big day with his legs, but not so much with the arm. At 245.5 passing yards, I'm going to take the under all day. In both meetings versus the Giants this year, he was under that total. And I think that's perfectly fine with what the Eagles want to do. I'd expect him probably to be around 21 or 22 for 30, 30 attempts between 220 and 235 pass yards, but well under the 245.5. They're a team that is based on the run. They want to be physical. They don't want to be airing it out. Sure, if there's opportunities to take shots through the air, they will get them. But for the most part, you'll see Jalen Hurts working the ball around efficiently throughout the game and getting it done mostly through the ground.
All right, now it's time where we look at the game. And this is the nightcap on a Saturday. And Danny, the Eagles beat the Giants twice, as we know. They're 8-point favorites to complete the trifecta. The total is 48. Those are the numbers. What's the pick?
So I'm going to go ahead and lay them with the Eagles. I hate that it's over a touchdown, but I'm going to go ahead and say that it's a dominant performance, much like we saw the first time around when both teams were at full strength. I don't want to say that the Giants are fraudulent for what they did against Minnesota. I think Minnesota's defense was fraudulent, and I don't think the Eagles' defense is. Pete gave some great stats about how well they rush the passer, how physical they are up front. I think it's going to be a much tougher go of it for Daniel Jones and that Giants offense. And I think the Eagles will be able to establish the line of scrimmage, very business-like win for them against a divisional foe. I also think this could be more of a traditional old-school NFC East like slugfest, a battle out there in the trenches. So I like the under as well throughout the game.
You know what this weekend is? Since I'm a pit bull, I'm not going to bark. I'm going to growl. Arr, it's all about the dogs, Danny. That's what it is. It's all about the dogs. And the Giants are going to go in there and play well. And they will do things on offense that will get creative and open up some passing lanes down the field. I think this offense is cooking right now. I know the Minnesota defense stinks, but I think they're going to have success against the Eagles. Here's what I would do on defense if I'm the Giants. Put Dexter Lawrence right on Kelsey's nose. Make him block him. I think that could slow the run game down. I think they hang around, and they will score points. I like the Giants and the over.
Wow. See, when you growl, all I can think of is if you're going to be a Bear, be a Grizzly. Arr, do you remember that? Cannonball Run. That was Joe Klecko. Way back in the day. Pete Prisco and Danny Kanell. Big thanks, guys. Enjoy the games today. Recapping the picks. Danny thinks Jalen Hurts will go under 245.5 passing yards. Pete says Daniel Jones going to go over the 41.5 rushing yards. Thinks you're going to need your legs to win this game. Importantly, the guys are split on the total and who will cover the spread in this one.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.